The original Borderlands was a wonderful surprise, a striking art style, tight mechanics, and so much loot that it became more than just a one-player affair for many.
And it had one of the best intro songs to a game ever.
Ain't no rest for the wicked. Money don't grow on trees.
But it wasn't without its faults. The enemy AI wasn't very interesting, and also I remember so many skags, heck, so many.
But we're back for more lootin' and shootin' with this sequel, and with that comes more diverse and varied environments and enemy types, better guns, and even a half-decent story to tie it all together.
And barely any skags.
This ain't no place for no hero. This ain't no place for no better man. This ain't no place for no hero.
There are 4 all-new characters to choose from. Salvador the Gun Zerker is the no-nonsense option, with his ability letting you dual-wield and regen ammo and health.
Fistfuls of hate!
Maya the Siren can phase-lock enemies, trapping them in mid-air. Axton the Commando can bust out turrets. And finally, Zero the Assassin can go invisible and create a decoy of himself.
There's also a 5th class coming out called the Mechromancer, and we couldn't test that out because it's coming later as DLC, and it's designed for gamers who don't play first-person shooters a lot.
Yes, now if you're up to speed with the controversy surrounding that, you may have read Borderlands developer John Hemingway saying this: "I want to make, for the lack of a better term, the girlfriend skill tree. This is, I love Borderlands and I want to share it with someone, but they suck at first-person shooters."
We recently spoke to executive producer on Borderlands 2, Randy Pitchford, for his take on those comments.
The skill in question, if you miss and the bullets hit the ground or hit the wall, there's a chance that they'll reflect and hit the enemy. Imagine then I can use this skill and you know, have my grandfather play split screen with me. Now, the fact that my particular grandfather is not good at first-person shooters, is that an indictment against all grandfathers? Of course not. Of course not. And the design of the skill, it is not biased towards any gender or any age or any race or any sexual orientation. And in fact, in my worldview and in, you know, I like to think the philosophy of the entire studio, discrimination is horrible. I think what happened was Jonathan was talking about his own girlfriend who happens to be a non-gamer. Now again, is that an indictment against all girlfriends? Of course not. That's ludicrous. That is ludicrous. And in fact, when you think about what the intent behind the design of this character is, you kind of want a guy like Jonathan on the team of design because he's actually thinking about inclusiveness, right? He's actually like, and that's one of the things that frustrated me so much. And I think it's kind of dishonest because there were a lot of journalists there that day, and all of them talked about the skills of the Mechromancer and how cool this character was. But one journalist decided to take a quote and kind of manipulating it, knowing that the readers would imagine, that guy's a sexist, and get controversy about that. And that's dishonest.
And you can see that full interview on the website.
Set 5 years after the first game, after the vault opened, the Hyperion Corporation have moved in to harvest all of the iridium floating around Pandora. But they've also found a second, bigger vault, which the boss of Hyperion, Handsome Jack, is pretty keen on getting into.
At first I groaned when I heard this, Hex. Another vault, way to recycle the story. But it actually was a premature groan because the story is worth paying attention to here. You'll meet up with lots of familiar faces from the first game and join their resistance to stop Hyperion and Handsome Jack from getting to the vault.
Well done! Your ability to walk short distances without dying will be Handsome Jack's downfall.
I love the humor in this game, Hex. It's genuinely funny, and that story had all sorts of twists and turns too.
Yeah, and the characters have been brought to life with solid cutscenes and really expressive animations.
You'll never take me alive, you robotic son bitch!
Enemies shout out some great lines, and some of the characters you meet are delightfully insane.
All around the cactus plant, the stalker chased a bandit. The stalker thought 'twas all in fun. Pop! Goes the bandit.
Hex, there's something about a completely deranged world that's just fun to be in.
Yes, but it's all icing on the cake, however, because Borderlands is all about one thing: guns. Lots of guns.
Heaps.
Love my little pistol.
Yes, it's an endless drip feed of crazier and crazier weapons, and almost as soon as you found a favourite, you'll stumble upon something else and toss old Yeller to the side like it meant nothing to you. It's fun experimenting with all these different weapons, and that keeps you in the game somewhat. Also, that hit registration is so good. Every bullet goes exactly where you think it will. And all those critical hits and numbers flying off, it's quite rewarding gunplay.
Yeah, I also think the AI does a much better job of keeping you on your toes too. They jump around and throw things at you, take cover, flank, and make sure you never stop moving. There's also heaps of explosive barrels scattered around the environment now, but they're not your usual red barrels because they're filled with elemental substances. There's electric barrels, toxic barrels, and the new element slag, which boosts the damage of every kind of damage other than slag. Having this barrel variety makes them much more integral to combat because they're just so useful.
Yeah, I like the variety of the enemies here too. Old foes return, joined by a heap of new ones from bullymongs, mechs, stalkers, threshers, and these crystally things. And each of these have variations. Some are on fire or spit acid, or are just bigger badass versions. And this variation means you'll constantly be employing new strategies to take down enemies and exploit their exploits.
Bats? No one said anything about bats!
Although just generally shooting them a lot works as well.
We've been powering through the main story missions and ignoring most of the side quests, but from what we've played so far, in general the missions are just more interesting. There's still the odd collect 'em up in there, but otherwise they've done a good job of keeping things to the point and shaking that MMO-ish grinding from the quests.
I'm gonna need their badonkadonks first, and they got stole by the bandits a few days ago. Go get them!
I know it's unusual to mention Guild Wars 2 here, but after playing that where you didn't have to hand in any quests, to this where you have to go back to all the quest givers and hand it in, I genuinely found that frustrating. It's like something has switched in my mind. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, but handing in quests is an adventure staple.
Hello, mercenary person. I have money and a problem.
It's time for the staples to change, Hex.
One of those psychos ran off with the power core.
Just send an email. Done it.
Shame. I love to watch you work.
After the last game, I was a bit worried that the locations wouldn't vary enough, Barjo. I mean, that game was very brown. It was a brown time for games in general, but this time I think they've really done a good job of making sure that it keeps fresh and vibrant and different.
Yeah, and there's some pretty cool areas, like this toxic goo-filled cave, a big shiny city, and a lush green valley with rivers and waterfalls. And everything feels much bigger too, which is impressive considering how big the last game felt.
Yeah, plus we've been playing on a good PC with all the settings cranked to high, and I've got to say, I loved it, Badge. I don't think I've ever spent so much time just shooting fabric.
Hex, I had physics-gasms. The way it all shreds and falls apart, and the way liquid pools slosh around with explosions. And those singularity grenades are just pure awesome.
It's a scientific fact.
All of these effects do make the big fights chug a bit, but still, rah!
The driving felt better too. Just vehicles were weightier and I don't know, they just felt more attached to the world. Plus the larger environments meant there's less of those frustrating bits to get stuck on.
And the vehicles are big enough for everyone in the party to jump onto as well, which is good. And this game really is the most fun in co-op.
This is my car. Oops.
But if you do play with friends, it is good to play with someone at the same level, otherwise someone ends up not having much fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you join a higher level player's game, you end up just spending the whole time trying not to die and picking up loot that you can't use yet. Dying.
Save us, Gog!
Although you do level up much quicker if you can survive. On the subject of leveling, in addition to your usual earning of XP and skill points, there's also a new badass rank. This goes up as you complete challenges like shoot 1,000 bullets or kill X number of enemies.
And as it ranks up, you also gain tokens, which can be spent on upgrading things like accuracy, health, reload rate, and just about every stat. There's small upgrades though, 1% here or 0.5% there, but essentially you'll keep earning these forever, and they start to stack up pretty quickly. It's just another way to customize your character, and this game is very good at doing that. What are you going to give it, Hex?
It's pretty hard to fault, really. Superb combat, unique level design, and just hours and hours worth of fun to be had here. I'm giving it 9.
Yeah, it's the perfect sequel, isn't it? They just took everything and expanded and made it bigger and polished and tightened up, so I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 as well.
Do you remember after all those skags, we took on the giant Skag King?
Ah, the Skag King. From memory, I shot him with the balls.
I believe you did, yes.
Those were the days, Hex. How times have changed.